Hello, Julie. I'll introduce you, Julie Soul from the Soul Sparklettes Art Club, or what? It's the Glitter Bombers Art Club. So what is
Glitter Bombers?
Glitter Bombers is your membership club, and your website is
Soul Sparklettes Art.
Art.
So the Sparklettes being my two young kids.
Oh, fabulous. So I think just having the name Julie Soul is pretty cool. So well done with that, quite frankly. All right.
Very that. Got it. You got to upgrade.
Well, you've done very, very well. And thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about kids art because I know this is something that you do every single day, and you did it for you did it for years before you started your membership, which is focused on art classes for kids. But I've got a few questions for you today so that it can help my viewers learn about some tips and tricks, I suppose, when it comes to doing art with kids. I've got 4 kids myself, and I know that I went in with some ideas that did not work out, and some of them I figured out and others that I didn't. So we're going to talk about how, I've got some notes here, how to help kids want to do art, because I had 2 very strong-minded boys, but I knew it would be good for them, but it was very difficult. And then how to make it easier to do art with kids. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I think art comes down to creative problem solving. Would you agree? And I think that's important for adults and kids.
It really is, because a lot of the, I think jobs in the future are going to really require a lot of creativity. And I think that people don't recognize that enough. And I know here in US schools, art is relegated usually to it's not considered a core subject. And yet it links to everything. And it's how kids can synthesize information. And that's what actually made me start my company, is the fact that my kids, whether they saw a beetle on the walk that we were on, or they wanted to draw that dragon from that one movie, or it didn't matter what we were studying, ancient Egypt, and they wanted to draw it. And it's really how they learned better and synthesize that information. And so I had the pleasure of meeting 2 medical students just a few months ago, and they said that art was a requirement. Some kind of creative pursuit was a requirement in getting into medical school, because it's so important for stress relief and the way that they solve problems. If they get in there, they need to be able to think on their feet and think of other creative solutions. So
isn't that fabulous? Because so many people look at art as a way to escape life and have that time out, but it's also serving your life in so many ways.
Yes.
I was the fellow who wrote Creative Habits, or Atomic Habits, it was.
Yes.
James Clear actually talks about doing a creative pursuit as well. So how lovely. And I think it is so important for kids. Jobs in the future, absolutely. So, all right. So how do we get our kids to do it is the question. What do you think is a good age or time to start making art with kids?
Well, first of all, a lot of people think that art with kids at a very young age has to be a certain way. I think that as early as you can to get kids into a creative pursuit. And that doesn't necessarily mean doing art history, which is something that a lot of parents will do with their kids, but it means getting the experience with the paint. What does paint feel like? What does it look like? Looking at the colors. What does it feel like to hold a marker? What happens when they make a mark on the paper? And sometimes parents go into creating art with their kids and they think that it doesn't look show worthy because it looks like a scribble. And they focus on that part instead of the fact that these kids are learning and creating and experiencing. So I think as young as kids are able, and that you are willing yourself, because this, this really does have to play a part in it. If art is going to stress you out and you need a little bit of time, there's no one who's going to come after you if you don't do it at the age of 4 years old.
Yes, I think I had grand plans with my kids, and I wanted to see what they could do early, but it was hard work. It really was hard work. And especially as an artist that I wanted to do things myself. I felt like I could sit next to them and we'd do it alongside each other. But seriously, I was their actual slave until they were at least 6, I reckon. And once I got my head around that, it was okay. We would do it. And I wasn't expecting to get my stuff done while I was with them. But then there was this magical age at about 7 or 8 that they could get up and get their own water from the sink, and we could clean things up together, and they knew how to get stuff, and that's when it became more enjoyable for me. So glad I did the early stuff, but it really was a switch there where they became old enough to take it on themselves.
And I think it really depends on what kind of art you want to do with your kids too, because most parents will go out and they'll buy crayons for their kids.
Yes.
And the problem with crayons is they come in a lot of colors, which make them beautiful. I'm a huge fan of Crayola, but they don't leave a very vibrant mark on the paper.
Yes.
So what happens is parents will go out and buy crayons. They'll give the crayons to their kids. The kids will break the crayon. They will unwrap all the crayons.
Oh, true.
Or
yes.
they will get out only the light colors and get frustrated, or they'll want the blue paper and nothing shows up on blue. And then the kids suddenly don't like art because they've tried one art supply. So what happens usually after this is their parents will go out and buy them colored pencils.
Yes.
Which require a lot of sharpening and detail work. And suddenly none of the pencils are sharpened. And now we also have an unhappy kid. And at this point, the parent will just give up for a year, sometimes 2 years, and just say, you know, my kid doesn't want to do art. And you know what? Neither do I. And so part of what I do is really try to recreate and envision like what art is, and to find ways to make it so that adults feel like they can teach it, even if they give you the common, I can't draw a stick figure. Even if you think that, to know that you're capable, and also how many varieties of art there really are, and that it's not just crayons and it's not just colored pencils.
I continually relate this back to art fitness and physical fitness. So if you haven't found the sport or the exercise that really grabs you, it doesn't mean it's not out there. Yes. And you know that physical fitness is good for you, and art fitness is good for you too. If you haven't found the way that grabs you yet, persevere and find the thing that really makes it light up for you and light up for your kids. And they could be different things.
And I love that, because if you had told me that I had to do, I was not a soccer fan, anything that involved a lot of legwork as a child, I wasn't a super big fan of. But for tennis, something that was more arms, you know, more arm related a little bit, I liked it. And I see it in art with my kids. My oldest does not like messy art supplies. She does not like chalk pastels. She does not like tempera paint. Now, if that's the only thing I ever exposed her to, she would say, I hate art.
Yes.
And vice versa with my youngest. My youngest resembles her art projects every single time. She resembles what she eats. She resembles her art.
Yes.
She wants that full experience. And when it comes to the drawing, there isn't as much time taken there. She wants to get in.
How wonderful. It's great to have the two of them being so different, especially when you're in a teaching role, to be able to look after and address both approaches. And there are so many
work with your members too. You know, if they're not liking a medium, then switch.
Which is why we've introduced watercolor to that membership recently too. So you've got a bit of both. And watercolor is something that I love. I always have it in my bag. And I can remember taking it out with my kids at coffee shops when they were old enough to handle coffee shops, mind you, to give them something to do at the table that was creative and less screen related. So yes, well, that's fabulous. Okay, so we've got them started. We know while they're doing it. What subjects have you found that really engage kids straight up? If you want to win it to start with,
If you want to win it to start with, go with whatever their passion is. And that can really depend on the child. Dragons are always a hit. They just are. But asking a kid, so often we sit down to do art and we say, okay, we're going to draw this thing. And kids say no. And then they don't like art time. And then if they don't like art time, neither do you as the parent. Absolutely. Or the art teacher. If the kids aren't happy, you're not going to be happy. So one of the things I suggest is asking, depending on your teaching environment. So for a parent at home, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3 kids, asking them and getting them involved. What do you want to learn? Now, if that seems too open-ended and you're worried that your child is going to request to draw something that maybe you don't feel comfortable teaching, I recommend making a list of 5 things. Which of these 5 things would you like to draw? That way you feel like you have control and they also feel like they have a choice. So it's
Yes.
kind of a win-win. But anything dragons, aliens, we do glow in the dark robots, any kind of animals like this one from Encanto. So over here, Encanto is a big deal.
Yes.
So capybaras, anything that kind of relates back to movies that they're seeing, and it doesn't have to be like the character. It can be something related to it. But also different art supplies, ones that glow in the dark. So one of the things that's really fun to do is to get Fluorescent Art Supplies. They are back. I'm so grateful. I'm an 80s child. And buying neon art supplies and then getting a black light, and you can even get a black light flashlight. They're really inexpensive.
Yes.
Have the kids creating with any of these and then surprise them by getting out the flashlight and showing them how it glows. This is one of the most magical experiences for a kid.
So you're engaging them in the discovery of it all. And really, I think I'm still discovering, even just with the paint that I use every day, it is still exploring and experimenting with everything.
I think I did one of yours with the fluorescent watercolors.
Oh, yes.
And took a black light to it to show like how different it can look. And it's a really fun, but it's magical every time. And with watercolors, you can shine the black light on the water as well. So then kids start asking questions and they get the art and they get the science and they start understanding and learning how art is kind of connected across to
everything. Yeah. That's brilliant. Okay. So obviously your favorite art, well, it's hard to say what your favorite art supply is then, although fluorescent things get a huge mention.
Yeah, it's just kind of fun. Yes.
It is the variety there. And I know I say to people when I've done some kids art projects as well, just say never go cheaper than Crayola, because what you mentioned there about the crayons not being bright enough. I mean, Lord, if you pay $2 at the cheap shop for crayons, they are all wax. There's no color to them.
Yes.
So
it makes a big difference. Even that $1 can make a difference. So one of the art projects that we have in our membership, and I didn't realize and think about mentioning this ahead of time, we recommend tempera instead of acrylic just because it's more washable.
Yes.
Can you use acrylic or craft paint if you have it? Absolutely. But tempera is more washable. And when you're dealing with kids who might be running around with the paintbrush as a sword, it's just safer for a lot of people. But the tempera quality is huge when painting on different colors of paper. So if you have white paper, it's fine. But some of the cheaper tempera, it liquefies to get a lot of water. And so what happens is kids will put down one layer and it's not showing, they're not able to paint in what they drew.
Yes.
And then they get frustrated. And again, when they get frustrated, it's just not fun for anybody. I
have the same thing with adults and watercolors. If they're painting on really absorbent paper, your watercolors will not be vibrant because it's just all being sucked into the paper. So they'll be looking at my work, which is using decent paper and brighter and better, slightly better quality. It doesn't have to be top of the range, does it? It just needs to be
just
tested.
A tiny step.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll get so much more vibrance because there's more pigment. So it is as simple as that to get kids engaged, because they know what they like. And look, and I'm trying to step back from my adult judgment level whenever I'm looking at kids' work, which is a big step for some parents. So that's a really good.
It is. There's the comparison. You compare, and just like an adult is going to compare, kids do too, and they compare to each other and they compare to you.
How do you deal with that? Who's is better, mum? When your kids come to you and say, judge, and I'm like so anti the judging thing. It is hard, but
typically one of the things that I recommend is that you create with your kids. And as you're creating, one of my favorite things to encourage parents to do, and this is hard because we like to throw around the word perfectionist. My kids are perfectionists. And I like to hold up a mirror and say, what do you do? So if this is what I told my members the other day, I said, let's say you're applying eyeliner and somebody like bumps you and your eyeliner goes down your cheek. If I told you, don't worry, just turn it into a masterpiece, just turn it into a peacock wing. Now, some of you would take me up on that, but most of you would be like, no, I want to redo. I need a new canvas here. But yet we tell kids that they're not allowed to do that. We tell kids they're not allowed a fresh piece of paper. You need to just fix your line. We tell kids to keep going. So I tell parents that modeling that, and you need to figure out what do you want to model? Because if they see you throwing away your paper,
yes,
and then you're telling them to keep going, it's kind of not fair. If you really think about it.
yes.
And so one of the things I do is I deliberately will make a mistake or use an off color, and then I'll ask kids, what would you do?
Which is problem solving. This is the problem solving.
And it's more gentle because they're solving your problem,
not theirs.
So it's not their artwork to look at, where they're helping. And then when they really do get into that moment where they're looking at their own artwork and they're starting to think, well, what should I do? Those things come back because you're starting to teach them those creative problem solving skills. So it feels less scary. They know that you made a mistake and kind of thought about, what did you do with it? And now they're able to take that into their own work.
Absolutely. And just using that word or not using that word mistake.
Yes.
Because it does happen. And then, you're giving them the ability that when things go wrong in any other aspect of their life, they've had a bit of practice with dealing with disappointment and figuring out what the solution is. So
it's fun to be dramatic too. Another thing I like to do with kids is when I do make a mistake, I tell them that it's over. I am never going to do art again. I'm going to have to crumple up my artwork. I'm going to stomp on it. I'm going to throw it away. And inevitably, kids will look at you like you've just grown another head. And then that's a perfect opportunity to say, well, what do you think I should do? And they will just leap in to save you. And the next time they make a mistake, they're like, well, I don't want to look like that. That's so making it fun, but modeling that and just a fun way.
And you do have to have the fun. I mean, I'm thinking I've got another question here about best tips, but I'm thinking the memories that you're making are so important with these kids, and the art is almost incidental to the memories. I think you don't need to have the pressure of putting up everything they ever make in your house for the rest of time, because it would be the memories of the making that really are the gift of the art, I would say. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having fun playing music for kids. Kids love to have music playing with, we did a disco lesson. So you have a blue-footed booby painting as well. We do also. It was the top. When I saw that, I was just so thrilled. I wish I had a copy here to show you how ours differs. But it was one of the most requested. We have a Wonders of the World bundle coming out, and everybody wanted this bird. And so I heard about the silly dance. So kids create the bird, but they create a disco ball. So they're learning how to make it pop. And so, of course, you have to listen to disco music in the background while that's a requirement, right?
Absolutely. And look, if you want to do something quickly, faster music is great. And then if you need them to calm down, slower music. I used to do that with my adult classes as well.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. But music and art, it's just linking those things together is just huge.
Oh, wow. Well, I think we've just had our year here in Queensland put back by 2 weeks. The kids aren't starting school until a little later. So I know there are a lot of families that are thinking far out. This has been a long holiday already. They will go back to school, but what are we going to do with them now? And really not as many things are open at the moment as well. So if you were thinking, just as we sort of wrap up, if you had to think, okay, when I need an activity for today, what would you put out on your dining room table, I'm assuming, or outdoor table would probably be pretty good too if it's cool enough. Or we're in opposite sides of the world, so I'm saying cool enough because it's pretty hot here at the moment, and you're probably thinking if it's warm enough.
It's ice. It's ice here. I need to warm up.
If you're able to go outside. So what do you think you would choose? So we've talked about, I mean, I've got caddies of both. I've got cups of things all over the place here with crayons and pencils and watercolor paints. When you say tempera too, I was going to say, I think they're more like poster paint is similar to tempera.
They're
here
called
in
poster
Australia.
paint there.
Yep.
And I was looking right nearby. I was going to see if I could grab it because the Olympics is coming up.
Yes, yes.
And I wish I had it right here, but one of the things that, oh, there we go. This is the perfect easy activity. This is the Fingerprint Olympics. So this is a stamp pad, and you could use and paint over with your finger with any kind of paint, and then turn your fingerprints into something completely different. And I like to think that my fingerprints are, you know, doing a good job, but they're clearly not very good. I don't think a lot of them are going to medal this year. But that's a really fun art activity that's really easy, and it transfers outside or anywhere. And just like a felt tip marker or pen and a stamp pad and a little bit of paint. And it's something that is a very easy activity for kids to start creating with.
Yeah. And look, what I love about what you've said, all this whole chat that we've had, is that none of you, you haven't had the boy or girl separation either. All of the topics you've had have just been genuinely topics of human interest. And here we are talking about the Olympics. It's not a boy-girl thing, and so many things are separated into boy-girl things. This is something that your kids can do together at different ages as well, which is wonderful. I really love the idea of having, like, sharing a big piece of paper and everyone working on one piece of paper. If your kid can handle that.
Collaborative fingerprints.
Yes, exactly.
And then everyone could have their own color for their own team.
Perfect. So who's going to win? Yeah. Then we get into the competition.
Not
really doesn't matter. Exactly. Oh, well, that is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I know we talk often. It's my pleasure. And we'll probably chat again, I'm sure, because I've got more questions for you that have come up in this conversation that I know other people would be interested in as well. So we will talk again. But until then, I will put links to your website and your Glitter Bombers membership, which I absolutely love, with this video. And yes, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, and obviously your website. Are they the best places to find you?
Yes, Soul Sparklettes Art.
Soul Sparklettes, SOUL, Sparklettes Art.com. Just straight.com. Yes, of course. Fabulous. Well, thank you very much, Julie Soul.
Thank you, Hannah.
It's my pleasure. And I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.